Hello everyone, welcome to the second video. The first one was about Fury, so the red color. Second one is gonna be about Mind, so the blue color. We're gonna rank them from 1 to 6 stars. So 1 star is trash, then we have niche, 3 stars okay, 4 stars good, awesome is 5 stars, and meta defining is 6 stars. Now I'll put in the description a better explanation of what I think about each one of those, but also in the first video you can hear it at the beginning of the video. But now let's just jump into the cards. And in this particular set of cards, so blue cards, we have 6 trash cards, 9 niche cards, 5 okayish cards, 4 good cards, 2 awesome, but 4 meta defining. First card is gonna be a 3-drop with 3 might with 1 cost power, Aspiring Engineer. When you play me, return a gear from your trash to your hand. Now this is an incredibly niche mechanic that not only requires you to play gear deck that is tailored into like recurring it. So this is not playable for now, for sure. At least, you know, this videos might be funny because maybe something will become like meta in this expansion and I'll be looking like an idiot. But at the same time, I am not hiding that I am a beginner in Riftbound and I'm learning every day. But my gut instinct tells me that Aspiring Engineer is unplayable when it's Spiritforged is going to be released. But it might be a niche card in the near future when there's going to be more like graveyard manipulation and gears that are going to be really synergetic with it. So this might be okay-ish in the future, but for now it's trash. Also in this video I changed the way I recorded this, so I put all the units in one bundle and then we get all the spells in one bundle and the gears in one bundle, so I can put chapters, action, description, so you can jump between the stuff that interests you the most. Now Bubblebot, 3-drop, 3 might. When you play me, ready another friendly mech. Now this one we can straight up just compare to the one that we have already in Origins, which is also a 3-drop orange that does the same, but it's for any unit. So it's obviously this one is worse, but in a mech deck it's an okayish card. It's on rate and it has a positive effect, so it's not terrible. I just personally don't like 3-drops in this game because they kind of don't fit the way that you typically play when it comes to your mana, when it comes to your resources and its management. Now if a deck is like more like Kaisa, where you have a lot of spells for one cost that can be squeezed in, like 3+1 for example, then it makes more sense. But in the mech deck I feel like that might be problematic, so I'm gonna give him okayish, but he's close to being 4-star. Next we have a Forecaster, which is a 2 mana mech. Your mechs have vision, so they look at the top of the card when they're being played, and this applies to him and also to any other mech that you play. It's a 2 mana 2 power mech. That's the only thing that matters. Now typically I would rate those cards like at 3, but the problem is the only reason why you would play this card in your deck is because it's a mech. Like there are so many other better 2-drops that have better effects, like the Poro for example, that has deflect, right? Or the Poros that have like other colors of course that don't fit the rumble, but there's always better option, and the only reason why would you play this one over the other ones was gonna be the aspect of being a mech, which grants you all the bonuses from the mech tribe, but his effect is weak. So I'm ranking him as a 2-star. He is obviously gonna be played in a rumble deck, but that's about it. Now we have Frostcoat Cub. It's another 3-drop. I don't know what's going on here. 3 might. You may pay blue as an additional cost to play me. When you play me, if you paid the additional cost, give a unit -2 might this turn. So it has like a small, you know, effect. Think about it this way: Stupefy is a spell for 1 that gives you -1 and draws you a card. This is essentially kind of like a Stupefy, but instead of drawing a card, you have that card already drawn and you play it instead, right? But you're forced to pay 3 and then also power on top of it. So it's kind of horrible comparison actually. But anyway, point is, this is not very good. Like, I would not play this at all. The only upside of this card is that they changed it, which is very weird by the way, that the cards in this expansion, the second expansion, they don't have the minimum 1 to power, but the cards from Origin actually do. So they realized at some point very early after they made Origins and then made Spiritforged that they're gonna change it the way that it works, because now you can go to 0 with the minus power of those cards, which you cannot do with the cards with Origins, but creatures still don't die when they have 0. They need to be dealt any point of damage when they're at 0 to die. So this is just slightly better, but overall I would not expect this to see any play. Next we have a 5-drop Gearhead that is very underpowered, which means, you know, 5 cost for 3 might. That's not great. It also has a possibility to be accelerated for additional 1 in blue. Each equipment attached to me gives double its base might bonus. Now the problem is, for this to actually be net positive, it has to be 3. Because if the equipment gives +2, then it's +4, then your creature is 5 to 7, but you also have to pay for the equip cost, which is another power. If you would like to accelerate, that's another power. So this is super power hungry. Now, right now, I'll be honest with you, I think this should have 1 star, but I'm like giving it like 2, because maybe very soon there's gonna be some gears that we're gonna play with this better, but right now I'm not seeing any of it to be like playable with gearhead, so I'm giving it a niche, but more likely a 1 star actually. Next one, Plundering Power, 2 cost, 2 might, and I give him 6 star. This guy is phenomenal. When I concur, play a gold gear token exhausted. Now he's just on curve, 2 might for 2 cost, but his ability essentially gives you a way of staying on curve while getting like, you know, going back into the game, because you're using, for example, cards that are dealing damage to someone but they have a power cost. Now you're able to pay that because you got one of the battlefields, the other one that your opponent didn't get if you're going second, for example. So this guy is great when you're going second, but he's even better when going first, because when you're going first, you're probably overbearing when it comes to like how much tempo you can have, and this guy just kind of snowballs even more with you. So yeah, this guy is absolutely unbelievable, I think, and he's gonna be most likely exchanging the creatures. Like for example, in Kaiser right now, where we have 3 students, 3 Poros, the red ones that have deflect, and 3 the sentries, I would say that most likely this guy would replace the sentry or the students. I'm not a fan of students myself. It's like kind of hard to use them properly in many cases, but with this guy essentially probably will replace the sentries in my opinion, because he just gives more value faster in the game, which I think is important in Riftbound overall. All right, next one is Breakneck Mech. He's an 8 cost with 2 power, 7 might. Your mechs have deflect and ganking. I enter ready if you control another mech. Now, guy overall is not bad, but we have to compare him in the same colors to, for example, the Thousand Tail Watcher. Even if you're playing a mech deck, is this better than Thousand Tail Watcher? And most likely the answer is gonna be no. We know that if you play a Rumble, for example, then your mechs are gonna get a shield, so his value on defense is gonna be 8 instead of 7. And he is harder to remove because of the deflect. Ganking is like a bonus on top. But the problem is you are required to have another mech to have him ready, which is not guaranteed. And depending on the matchups, it might be actually very hard to have. Because if there's gonna be like a lot of removal in the metagame, it's gonna be hard to keep those mechs alive, you know? And if you just want to play the Thousand Tail Watcher, he can be played as a one-off, like you just play him from hand and he just does his job, and he can also take one of the battlefields. So yeah, this guy is okay-ish. Like if you don't have Thousand Tail Watchers, maybe you can play those in a mech deck, but I feel like Thousand Tail Watcher is still gonna be played over this even in a mech deck. So this one is a little bit odd. Drop Bordev, a 4-drop with 4 might. I had him at 2 stars at the beginning, but then I started thinking, and I'm actually changing my opinion about him. I'm putting him at 4 stars because he's on rate, but also he has this kind of a possibility of actually being pretty decent. Now think about the Plundering Poro from that I gave 6 stars already. Like he creates gears. So this requires gears, doesn't matter which gears, can be gold tokens even, right? So it can be seals as well. So you're capable actually of playing a ready unit on 4 resources, and if you're going second, you can even use the location, for example, that allows you to, when you conquer, you pay 1 and you create a gold token. So if you have a Plundering Poro, you conquer that, you can drop the drop order on 5 resources and ready him. So I don't know, I feel like he might be actually pretty decent, and hopefully we'll see him in the metagame actually. Then we have 3 drop, again 3 might, Pickpocket. When you play me, you may kill a gear with energy cost no more than 1. If you do, play a gold gear token exhaust. He is not terrible. He might be a sideboard choice. And remember that this can defeat like other gold gear tokens because they're tokens with cost of 0. But overall, he's very limited in the targets that he has. He is also called pickpocket because he's gonna steal gold, right? So he kind of like destroy gold and get your own gold. So maybe in the metagame, when there gonna be more gears with 0 or 1 cost, like maybe there will be seals of any seals being in a metagame, pickpocket would be a unit that would like to have in a sideboard, but right now I feel like he's gonna be even niche for a sideboard, so I'm putting him at a 2, but he's closer to a 1 star. Price of Progress is a unit for 4 with 1 blue power and 3 might. When you use an activated ability of a gear, give me +1 this turn. So not only he is limited to the buffs by gear, but it cannot be like when you play, it has to be when it's activated ability of a gear. I feel like this is absolute trash. So not only costs you power, like I don't know, man, like this just feels, you don't want to play this for as a 4-drop. It sets you back so much, and if it's not a 4-drop, that means that it's a late game setup. So you want to play him at the end of the game, and then you like spam abilities to give him what +5. That would be then considered good for its cost. Like yeah, this is just not a good card. Maybe if I am gonna be wrong, I'm gonna eat a piece of a card on stream. Then we have Bard, a 4-drop with also 1 power, right? Let's compare it to the other one. This one has 4 might. When you play me, remember that the previous one, it was also a mech, but I don't think it matters as much. You may exhaust your legend as an additional cost to play me. When you play me, if you pay the additional cost, move any number of units to open battlefield. Now, this guy is actually not bad. His cost is, he's a little bit costly, but he's like a late game drop that you would drop with other cards in your hand, so you can essentially take any open battlefield and stack units on it. So it has its usage. I think it's an okay-ish card that can be played, let's say, in a deck that wants to stack, control the early board, like stack like gears, or stack like maybe like removal and card draw to establish board control, but without actually any units on it, and then play massive amount of units from hand alongside Bard and move all of them to open battle. So there might be something behind it. I don't think it's very good right now, but there might be a way of actually utilizing this at some point in the future. Now, also remember, this can be played in Victor, and in Victor, he would be able to move the units that you also like, the token, the generated tokens. It is limited to open battlefields, but there is some possibilities of navigating this card and actually being efficient with it. So I'm giving it 3 stars, but it's pretty decent. The next one is going to be Card Shop. He's a 3-drop with 3 might. When you play me, you and each opponent may play a gold gear token exhausted. For each opponent who did, you play a gold gear token exhausted. So think about it this way. I play this guy, minimum I get is 1 gold gear. If my opponent also has played a gold gear token, then I get 2 gold gear tokens, which means that I'm enabling, for example, the 4-drop that is entering the game untapped because I control 2 gears, right? It also allows you to essentially ramp up for any spells in Kaisa. If you can play this in Kaisa, for example, instead of the Yordles. The Yordles are 3 mana, 2 might, and draw you a card. Have also a tank, which sometimes is, important. But Card Shop trades because he has a 3 might and also kills 2 drops, while also delivering value. The problem is that you give a little bit of agency to your opponents because they are able to decide if you're getting 2 or 1 gold token, but overall it speeds up the process of you using expensive cards, like for example Falling Star. Imagine that as a Kaisa player, you're able to just play Falling Star without paying any power cost to it. Like, that's kinda incredible, and it doesn't matter if your opponent got the gold gear token himself. So I feel like this is actually a very decent card, and I wouldn't be surprised if it just straight up slots into the new Kaisas. Now, I don't have a deck built around him, but I think this Azrael is annoying as fuck. 4-drop with 1 cost of a power, 3 attack. When I attack or defend, deal damage equal to my might to an enemy unit here. I don't deal combat damage, and for 1 power as an action, move me to your base. This guy is gonna be incredibly hard to kill, right? He is able to go back to base and ignore like targeting battlefield removal. He's able to always go back to base if something happens during the combat when he is not in not having an advantage, when he was aiming to have an advantage. The problem is of course the power cost, because there's a lot of sink into it. But now when you combine that with the plundering poros or the card shop that I talk about, suddenly you have a lot of gold gear tokens, and this guy will just kill units over and over. And remember that if you play, for example, let's keep it to blue and red, you play a cleave on this guy and he will deal 6 damage to something before the combat, right? So it's like you're able to actually destroy units while almost being safe. And I think he's very strong. I just don't know how disruptive will be the power sink cost of his blue, action cost, but he is gonna be incredibly annoying. So I'm giving him 5 stars. It's more of a gut instinct, but I think this card is gonna be very good. Now, this guy, I feel like he was talked about so much, so I'm not gonna like dive into him too deep, but he's just phenomenal. 4-drop with no power cost, he's on curve with 4 might, and when you play me, you may kill a friendly gear. If you do, you may play a gear with energy cost no more than 7 from hand this turn, ignoring its energy cost. You might still pay its power cost. The obvious combo is the 7-drop yellow gear that creates tokens that you can use the same turn, right? You can just play it. You destroy a gold gear token, you play the 7-drop, you tap it to create 3 tokens, and then from that point on you will create 3 tokens every turn. That is backbreaking. I don't know how often this is gonna be happening, but this guy is phenomenal. And the only problem is that you're gonna build a deck around him, but that deck also has to work when you don't draw him, right? So that is the problem that I see with this card, and you gonna be very challenging deck building challenge, great sentence here, that will allow him to shine. But he's definitely meta defining in just his tech. I feel like if he's not gonna be played this expansion, each expansion will gonna have to look at this card and be like, wait, does this break him even more? And with every color combination, there's gonna be more gear coming in. So this guy potentially is gonna have a power level that is unprecedented when it comes to what he can do, how can he break the game, because he's just gonna be allowed to completely destroy the mana constraints by playing something that is super expensive for 0 mana essentially, right? So yeah, this guy is incredible, and thank God he's not an epic, because even if he's not gonna be played right now, he would still be giga expensive. And also he's on Jace, right, which is, there's many fans of Arcane, so I feel like he's gonna be popular character. People will definitely try to break him, and I'll definitely try to make a deck myself. But yeah, he is amazing. Another incredibly powerful creature. It's gonna be another rare, by the way. Very happy that this is not an epic, although maybe it would be nice if it would be an epic to be more expensive and also have the full art, because his art is amazing. So yeah, you know what, scratch that. I would rather have him as an epic to have the full art. 6 resources, 4 might, so not good, right? But let's just read the text. Deflect 2, which is bonkers, right? That Deflect 2 is gonna be so annoying to remove. Then he has Weapon Master, and I have +1 might for each friendly gear. Now, On is of course is gonna be played in an On deck. In an On, he's gonna be available in every game, because you're gonna use him as your leader champion. I mean, as your chosen champion. So you're gonna be playing him for that secret resources. And now let's think about what are the potential combos. One of the easiest things to do is gonna be playing him with this Sterax Gage. I don't know how to read that. Anyway, 3 resources, 2 green, but for On is gonna be 1 green. Has a quick draw, so you can play it and attach it as a reaction, and then you don't have to play the cost of the equip, right? And it gives +3. So now you will have this probably on your board already, because you're gonna be using to get more value on something else they had in your game. You're gonna be only paying 1 power cost for this. It's a +3, which is great on rate with instant reaction, so you're gonna probably get some value there. And then when that unit finally gets deleted, your gauge is gonna stay on the board, and when it stays on the board and you play on, then he auto equips it and then suddenly becomes a 6 a 6 and 8 might, which is incredible with the deflect too. Even if it doesn't come ready or anything, it's just a beefy creature, and that's just only 1 gear. Imagine having like 2 or something, or any of those signature gear. Like, this guy is incredibly intimidating and it's gonna be annoying to deal with. So yeah, this guy gets a 6 stars from me. Now Renata, it's a very Polish name by the way, 5-drop, 4 might, underpowered, right? She is potentially champion unit, but her effect is just so weak. You don't want to play this on curve. She only has the ability when she's at the battlefield, which is 1 resource and blue, you draw 1, or 4 resource and 4 blue, and then tap her to score 1 point. I'll be honest with you, I think this is... I probably should have given this 1 star. I don't think this is any good. Like, I really don't. I don't think Renata in general is not gonna be a good legend, and this is just an unfortunate epic to open in a booster pack. You know what? I would probably say, verbally, I'm not gonna change the slide, but this probably should have a 1.5 stars, maybe, at max, not even 2. Alright, next one is gonna be Rumble, the champion unit, but probably not really. 5-drop with 1 power cost, 4 might. Your max have +1, so he is dropping as a 5 cost, 5 essentially might. When I hold, I play a 3 might mech unit token to your base. Now this is a hold effect, so you're not guaranteed to get this at any point of the game, right? When you combine that with his Rumble legend effect, he's gonna be a 6 defense. But again, it's like you have another Rumble that just seems to be better. I think the other champion unit, the rare, that has a 4-drop with no power cost, but also gets to up to 5 power because it has assault 1, right? And on defense is also gonna be a 5 might, so 1 less than the Rumble Scrapper over here. But the guarantee of having him to be on when you're on the play, you can play him on just turn 2 for 4 resources and not costing you any power is actually a big deal. So I don't think this Rumble Scrapper is actually any good, and he's not gonna be replacing the other red drop for 4. And now we go into spells. So our third chapter, for 2 resources, reaction with repeat 2, give a unit -2 this turn. Now this is essentially a very expensive smokescreen. Smokescreen is for 2 resources with 1 power cost, right? It gives -4, but in most cases it's gonna be -3 if it's used on a unit that has less than 5 might. In case of Friggage Touch, it is a little bit more flexible because it can be played on 2 units, but it's much more expensive. It doesn't have a power cost. So there's like pros and cons to both, right? If you play Kaisa, I don't think you ever played Friggage Touch because you just play Smokescreen, which is essentially 2 mana and no power cost and gives -4. So in that, for Kaisa, it's gonna be almost always better, while Frigid Touch may be tad more acceptable when it comes to the power costs, right? In decks that are being blue but are not Kaisa. Remember also that this gives up ability to go to 0 might because it doesn't have the minimum 1, just like the Smokescreen. So it has that advantage. But again, it's like how often will come into play when you still have to deal damage to a unit like that. So yeah, for now, I'm not seeing this being used in any deck. So I'm just giving 1 star. In 99% of the cases, Smokescreen is going to be a better. Next one is a 3-drop, 3 mana spell, Wages of Pain. It has hidden, has also action. Deal 3 to a unit at the battlefield, play a gold gear token exhausted. Now, essentially, what it does, you have to think about it this way. I pay the hidden cost, which then I get back when I get the gold gear token exhausted. So I'm just like transferring one of my resources into the future turn because I exchange my rune for a gold gear token once I play the Wages of Pain. So this is a pure tempo card in most cases. You can also just use it as a free resources, deal 3, get gold, which is also not terrible, but at the same time, it's not the best, right? It has some modality, which I really like, and I just think it's okay. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see that this card will see some play. All right, next card is gonna be Production Surge, 4 cost, with a power cost. This costs 2 less if you control a mech. mechs have to be a unit. It cannot be the legend, right, itself. So you need to have a unit. And then when you play it, you get a 3 might mech token to your base and you draw 1. So it replaces itself. It's a can. Now, I think this is pretty decent card. Obviously, it's gonna be only played in mech decks. But I think in a mech deck, even with the power cost, even if you only have to pay the 1 blue, I think that's fine because it's a cheap 2-drop. Like, think about it this way. If you had a 2-drop that has 3 might and he draws you a card, you play it, even when it costs a power, right? You're not gonna play it on turn 2, but it's just gonna squeeze. It's gonna be an easy squeeze later into the game, like in mid game, late game, when you just basically reinforce your base while still not running out of gas. So this is okay-ish card in mech. And now we have a very decent card, I think. Rocket Barrage is for 4 cost, 1 power blue. It has repeat for exactly the same, so 4 resources and 1 blue. And then you can choose one of the effects. So you can deal 4 units to only in a base. I think this is the first time we actually have a removal that damage removal that only works in a base, or you kill a gear. Now, this is actually pretty decent because it allows you to kill an opposing. For example, if you would play this in current environment, this would allow you to kill a Kai'Sa in the base without sacrificing power if you're playing like your own Kai'Sa, right? So that's already pretty decent option. It also has the option to just kill gears. So I would say this is just a good card because it can be played both early in the game and late into the game and have decent value. Paying 8 mana and 1 power to kill 2 units in the base, that is pretty sweet deal, right? And you still have like the option of, wait, maybe there's a gear right here and I can kill a unit and a gear at the same time. I feel like the modality of this already makes this card very good. I mean, not very good. It's just a good card, you know, and I'm happy to see cards like this. Giving you more options is always nice because they are skill checkers, right? Like, depending on how you play with those cards, it will actually matter how effective you are with this in the first place. So I like Rocket Barrage. I think it's going to be played in the metagame, specifically when there's going to be just gears being played by different decks. So this can be main decked and can be sideboarded, which again showcases you that the possibilities of this card are higher than your typical niche sideboard card against a gear deck. Then we have Bellows Breath, which I thought is a signature spell, but it's actually not. 1 cost, 1 power, action, can repeat for the same. Deal 1 to up to 3 units at the same location. Now, it's very niche because I don't think you're gonna use this outside of Ornn. Maybe there's some play here with Red, for example, and Ravenbone Tome, which allows you to deal 3 times 2 damage into 1 location to 3 different units, right? Because you cannot target the same unit more times than once, and that's its limitation. That's why I think it's niche. It can be repeated, right? So the more you buff the effect of the spell, the more the repeat gets even more powerful, right? But at the same time, it's like you're not gonna play this outside of Ornn, most likely. Ornn has the death cap, right? That allows you to boost a spell by, I think, 2 or 3 damage, and then Bellows Breath deals 3 or 4 damage to each unit in 1 battlefield. But again, it's still very narrow. It only affects 1 location, but it can be the base, it can be one of the battlefields. So opponents can play around it to some degree, but you always have an option to at least deal damage to 1 location. With Ornn, maybe even like clear an entire location. So it's not terrible, but I think it's very niche, and I don't think you're gonna be finding squeezing this into the deck is not going to be an easy task with all the damage removal that we have in blue. And when you play Ornn, well, then you basically don't really have that many options because you're playing green alongside it. But at the same time, do you want to play Bellows Breath if you only have 1 death cap that boosts this spell? That's gonna be very problematic if you don't draw it then, because the card just doesn't get as effective, right? So for now, 2 stars. Maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully not. It would be nice to be playable. So I hope I'm wrong. And now we have a card that I believe in. So Hextech Anomaly is a 3 cost with 1 power and gives you a tap reaction, pay any amount of power to add that much energy. Now, I'm giving this 6, but I think it's gonna be niche. But the problem is that this card is absolutely insane. How I like thinking about Riftbound is that the game is all about being efficient with your mana and not setting back yourself up by too much by paying the power cost, right? In the early and the mid game. But then in the late game, it doesn't matter how many runes are you recalling to your deck if you're winning the game. And this is the sole purpose of this card. I think at Hextech, you want to play this Hextech anomaly and secure the win in the following turn, because you are able to essentially dump your entire hand by sacrificing all of the runes that you have, because you're sacrificing the runes to get energy, and you can float them as long as you want in that turn to then do anything that you want with your hand. So it allows you, let's say we play this in one of the turns, like when we had like 7 mana or 8, and then we go into the next turn and we now have, let's say, 9 resources and the Hextech anomaly in the game. I am able to now utilize the 9 resources as 9 resources and then recall them to get up to 18 resources, or the combination of power and energy, but essentially it's gonna be, the number is gonna be 18. If my hand has enough cards, I probably will be able to play my entire hand. If I can play my entire hand, I probably am able to hold a location and probably secure the win. So also remember that this enters ready. So let's say I have 10 resources. I start the round. I can pay 7 for something. Let's say it's gonna be whatever, it can be whatever. I can play maybe Darius Trifarian for 5. Then I pay anything to untap him, attack it, maybe something. So I use 7 resources. I have 3 left. Now I play Hextech Anomaly. I have 8 resources left, but it's all tapped because I paid 2 power costs for the Darius and the Hextech Anomaly. But now I can just recall my 8 runes back to the deck and play more stuff. That is crazy, because your opponents cannot even think about this happening because they didn't see the Hextech Anomaly in the same turn. Now again, this is a late game card, so I don't think we're gonna be playing it more than like 2 copies, maybe even just 1, but I feel like this card is absolutely insane. Similar approach of how you want to use a card is in Hidden Blade, where Hidden Blade is not a good card if you play it early game or mid game against opponents. But in the late game, when the game is just being closed, you slam the door in front of your opponent's face, they can draw the cards, but it doesn't matter because the game's over, right? And Hextech Anomaly has this kind of effect, but for yourself instead of against the opponent. So maybe I'm completely wrong in, but I do think that Hextech Anomaly is absolutely busted, and it is gonna be an incredibly potent card even in Spiritforged, but even more in future releases when more cards come in. And now we have Premonition. Now it looks awesome, by the way. Big fan of the artwork. Now for 2 resources and 3 power, as a reaction you draw 3. This cannot be bad. I refuse to believe that this card is bad, even though with this high power cost. Like, let me explain it this way. In a deck that will make this work, the power cost is not gonna be an issue, because most likely you're gonna be using a seal. Like the entire problem with seals, like seals of insight, seals of power, or whatever, right? You empty your hand to not pay the power cost, but then it turns out that you emptied your hand so much that you don't have the cards to play and benefit from the lack of power cost, right? So Premonition fits into this archetype. When you dump your hand to not pay future costs and then you refresh your hand with cards like Premonition, right? Let's say, again, I'm gonna be using Kai'Sa as an example, but let's say I'm playing Kai'Sa and she's also blue, right? So we can literally use this. So if I play 2 Seals of Insight, which cost me 0 resources, but they cost me 2 power, right? But then I'm able to play Premonition by tapping Kai'Sa, tapping the 2 seals, and I'm drawing 3 cards. That is a decent deal. And now suddenly I replace the 3 cards that I played, so 2 Seals of Insight and the Premonition, and I'm able to play the rest of the cards that I'm gonna be getting now from the turns onwards with no cost when it comes to the power, right? So I feel like this is a card that enables deck building with these seals, and this might be pretty scary. At the same time, those decks might be a little bit inconsistent because of the fact that you're going to be playing a lot of cards that don't do much by themselves, but when they're going to be start spinning, right, and in Riftbound you're going to be able to kind of let go of the board in the early game, because it's different from Magic or Star Wars Unlimited when there's no compounding effect of losing the board. Like, your opponent will be able to just get max 2 points per turn, right? You don't have to plan around like, oh fuck, if they're gonna play an aggro creature right now, they're gonna slam my face for 15 damage and I was expecting like 10. That's not the case. You know exactly how many points you're gonna be losing. So it's easier to plan around it, and because of that, I feel like Premonition and overall a deck that will be built around this engine, the draw engine and utilization of cards that are gonna be cheap and then dumped and allow you to build your mana while not paying the power costs. So at the end, you're gonna be exploding with big creatures or like some big spells with maybe the Hextech Anomaly as well, right? Then suddenly you're gonna be winning by pure card advantage. And yeah, I think it's a very exciting card. Maybe in Spiritforged, this is not gonna be yet a deck that will be like very good. But I'm definitely keeping an eye on this, and I'll try to make it work in some, maybe even some different type of Kai'Sa deck. So we'll see. So we finished with the units, now we're gonna be going into the gears. Chemtech Cask is for 1 resource. When you play a spell on an opponent's turn, you may exhaust me to play a gold gear token, Exhausted. Now, very close to giving this a 1 star. The problem I see with this card is that not only it doesn't do anything by itself. The second thing, it only works when you play spells, but also only on the opponent's turn, and then you have to exhaust this to give 1 gold gear token. Yes, like, there's so many hoops that you have to jump through this to even get 1 gold gear token, so you would need to play so many more spells to actually make sense out of this card, right? You need to get this effect like twice minimum to be even considering this being like okay-ish. Maybe in the future, but right now I'm giving, like, this 2 should be a 1 star, I think, but I'm giving it 2 because maybe there's something coming, but I feel like this is not really a great gear to have. And next one, you actually might be surprised, because I was surprised as well when I started thinking about this. It's a 1-drop Cloth Arm, quick draw, right? So you can just attach it and play as a reaction. It has equip cost, of course, of blue. It gives you 0 might, but a shield, so which is 2, +2 while I'm defender. Now, this is not a great card, but I started thinking about it a little bit more. And in my head, the scenarios when I'm using this are actually pretty easy to essentially be a reality, because a 1-drop is very easy to squeeze into any rounds, right? It doesn't cost you any power because of it's a quick draw reaction. You only have to pay power for it when you're gonna be using it the second time. But if you use it once to pay 1 to get +2, this is on rate. Now, obviously, this only works on defend, but that's still not terrible, right? So this is actually pretty decent, I would say. And because you can get more value out of this over turns, over the course of the entire game, if you get 2 times the value out of this, that is super value already. If you use it 3 times, that's even better, right? So like getting 1 for 6, of course 2 power on top of it, but maybe you're gonna use some gold gear tokens, maybe some other stuff we're gonna pay for that power cost. So like I really think this might be one of the most common equipments that we're gonna see being played overall, because it's so flexible but also so annoying to deal with. So yeah, it's not maybe the best for like decks like a Kai'Sa, because Kai'Sa doesn't want to hold on locations too much, right? So the defending situation is not really happening that often. But for decks that are gonna be a little bit more in your face and taking battlefields and then staying on it, Cloth Armor might be actually incredibly potent. Now, Experimental Hexblade, another 1-drop, but has equip for blue, gives a mech keyword essentially to any unit that is being equipped with it, and gives +1 might. Now, if you're reading this, you're like, oh, bing, 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 oh, we can play this in a mech deck. Well, actually, you don't want to. You don't want to play this in a mech deck, because in a mech deck, you want to play mech. You don't want to play units that are not mechs that then you have to equip with an experimental hexblade, because that completely destroys the idea of a synergetic tribal, right? Unless there's gonna be a unit that specifically has a broken like interaction, but I didn't see any when I was reading all the cards. I didn't see any popping out into my mind. So right now I'm giving this 1 star, and it's a into the trash, because I don't feel like there's any way I'm building a mech deck which relies on having units that are not mechs, so I can then equip them with the Hexblade. Like it is opposite of what I'm trying to do in that deck for now. Temporal Portal is a free drop that is incredibly convoluted. So for any power, tap, it gives the next spell you play this turn a repeat equal to its cost. So now you have to pay to get a repeat to then pay the repeat cost. So let's say we're using this, let's keep it simple, and let's say Void Seeker. So Void Seeker is a free cost with 1 power and deals 4 damage and draws a card. So let's assume I have Temporal Portal already on the board, which is 3 resources. Then next turn, when I have like 6 resources, I'm going to be playing Temporal Portal. I'm going to be playing Void Seeker and copying it with Temporal Portals. I need to tap it. I need to pay the power cost. So that's 1, let's say red or blue already. Then I have to pay the basic cost of the first Void Seeker, and then the second cost, which is essentially 6 mana, 3 power for 1 card that draws you 2 and deals 6 and can deal damage to multiple creatures. So it doesn't sound bad, but the problem is that if you try to get this online, you essentially right now it would fit the most into a Kai'Sa deck. But if you're playing Kai'Sa, you can't really have tools like this, because you're falling behind, and it's gonna be hard to justify this like an ongoing gear on the board, when you also probably, if you're gonna be playing Kai'Sa, you're also probably gonna be playing Thermo Beams like 3 times in your sideboard if equipment is gonna be in the metagame. So you don't want to play gear yourself when you want to destroy the gear with the thermal beams. So I don't see a deck right now that would like to utilize this. It's incredibly expensive for what it does. When it keeps being reused, then the values are obviously insane, but I don't think it can be broken right now. Maybe I'm wrong, hopefully not, but this is a 2-star for me. A very niche, like some decks might actually use this as a one-off, like something like a Kai'Sa, but we'll see in the future. Next one is Ward Atlas, 3 drop. Again, with an equip cost for blue, when I hold, play 2 gold gear tokens exhausted, and it gives +2 might. The rate is not great. 3 resources and 1 power to get +2 might on something, and then it has to hold to actually get the gold gear tokens exhausted. That is a huge investment, and the payoff is not really that great as well. So I don't see this being played at all, like completely. You have to play essentially a deck that wants to fortify, which that is gonna be very hard to do. Like imagine like the Rumble deck with the blue leader would be, maybe with the blue champion unit, would probably focus on that as well, and I don't think that deck even would like to use both that. So yeah, this is trash in my opinion. And now we have a 0 drive, 3 cost, equipped for 1 mana and a power cost, and then it has effect for 3 resources and 1 power. To banish this, play all units banished with this, ignoring their costs. So how it works essentially is like you play this, you equip it to a unit. That unit then has a death knell. When it dies, it gets banished, so it doesn't go to the graveyard. It goes like, let's say, underneath the 0 drive. So the 0 drive accumulates the units that is being equipped with when they die. So it's kind of like a Zonya effect, but not really. And then you can decide to banish this gear to play all the units that were discarded or like banished with this, to play them on your board without paying its cost. Now, if we play this just for 1 card, it would have to be an incredibly expensive unit to make sense out of this, right? So let's say I'm playing a Thousand Tail Watcher, and I have this already on the board. Then the Thousand Tail Watchers get equipped with this. Then the Thousand Tail Watcher dies, and then next turn I can play Thousand Tail Watcher essentially for 4 resources, and I can also, if I'm not mistaken, accelerate it as well for 3. This sounds okay with Thousand Tail Watcher, but that is a setup that requires like a lot of potential, like a lot of value that is sacrificed along the way, because the zero drive is going to be incredibly expensive, right? Remember that if you want to play the 1000 Tail Watcher, you have to pay 2 power, but then you also have to get another mana and a power. So you don't drop him on 8, you drop him on 9 then, right? So it's like extends this the moment when you play the card by 1 turn as well. So if very expensive drops are too late, then we have to focus on mid-range cards, and we focus on mid-range cards, let's say Darius Trifarian, then we're gonna be able to equip him with this. For example, when we're gonna be having like 7 mana, we play Darius, we play the power cost, we play a 1 power 1 might card that will untap him, then we equip this on him, then we attack for like 9, for example, and he stays with this card active there. When he gets defeated, we can play one of we can play the Darius again for cost of 4, which is not bad, but again, it requires a setup. Now the problem is, if you want to play around this, like, you would have to play more than one copy. But if you want to play more than 1 copy, then it becomes inconsistent. If you play just 1 copy, then it's just like a fringe tech choice, and it's just the only value I see this it would be a deck that plays a very long game. So like, for example, with locations that extend the play by 1 point. I'm spending a lot of time explaining a card that I think is trash. So this is kind of like convoluted. It's hard for me to estimate the real value of this card, but I would say for now, this is a trash card. Potentially in the future, there might be a deck that completely abuses this, but for now, I don't really see the value in it, because remember, if there's gonna be hate towards gear in the upcoming events, in the upcoming expansion, then when someone is gonna destroy a unit, the zero drive gets unequipped, and someone destroys the gear before it gets to be used, and this has to be used during your turn as a slow speed, then you don't get any value. You sacrifice all of that power and resources to get essentially +2 to a unit, and then they just get completely obliterated because the zero drive gets destroyed. So it's incredibly hard to say if this is a good card or bad card. In my opinion, right now, this is a terrible card that maybe will be broken in the future, but that really depends on what kind of other potential combos we'll get with this. Because if we get like very cheap creatures with some incredible like enter the battlefield effect, or like some combos of them when they like kind of exchange something with each other, then this might be broken. But for now, I feel like it's absolutely terrible. All right, this is the summary again. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Next colors coming soon this week. But also, I'm going to be doing a separate video about Legends and separate video about the Battlegrounds. And I feel the Battlefields are going to be a very interesting video. All right, see ya. If you liked the video, consider subbing and liking and leaving a comment. Bye-bye.